wanting to do so much and had so much planned, and not having him, not talking to him, not having him be the father of our child. And my big fear was Lisa.
Elvis Presley, known as the King of Rock and Roll, was admired by millions and followed by fans worldwide. From a young age, he rose to fame and became one of the best-selling music artists of all time. But behind the spotlight and the crowds, Elvis was just a man, one who carried a lot of pain, felt deeply lonely at times, and still had a heart full of love. Then, just days before his passing, Priscilla Presley, the woman who had once been by his side, finally spoke out. She broke her silence and shared personal truths about the man she once loved and married. And what she revealed might surprise you. Before we dive into that, let's shed more light on the Elvis the world knew. The man and the myth. The man and the myth.
Not any special one. There was a little girl that I was seeing quite often over there.
Elvis Presley, often called the King of Rock and Roll, was one of the most important and unforgettable music stars of the 20th century. He changed the music world forever and left a deep mark on American culture. Elvis was known not just for his music, but also for how he moved on stage. His dancing and performing style were bold and exciting. Some people loved it, while others thought it was too much at the time. He mixed different kinds of music that were usually kept apart by race back then, and this made his sound new, powerful, and sometimes even controversial. Born in Tupelo, Mississippi, his family moved to Memphis, Tennessee when he was 13. That move changed his life forever. In 1954, Elvis walked into a small recording studio called Sun Records to make a song as a gift for his mother. The owner, Sam Phillips, heard something special in Elvis's voice. Sam was looking for someone who could take the powerful, soulful music of black artists and share it with a bigger audience. He believed Elvis might be the one. Elvis teamed up with guitarist Scotty Moore and bassist Bill Black. They created a new, wild sound by blending country music with rhythm and blues. It was called rockabilly, and it was brand new. Then in 1955, drummer DJ Fontana joined them, and the sound got even stronger. That same year, Elvis's new manager, Colonel Tom Parker, helped sign him to a major record company, RCA Victor. It was the start of something huge. In January 1956, Elvis released his first big song with RCA, Heartbreak Hotel. It shot to #1. People had never heard anything like it. His deep voice, the echo, the emotion hit like lightning. Young fans screamed and danced. Parents and critics weren't so sure. They thought his hip-shaking moves were too wild. But Elvis didn't care. He was just being himself. TV shows quickly invited him to perform. Millions watched, and reactions were split. Some saw magic, others saw trouble. He wasn't just singing, he was changing things. His music mixed sounds that had always been kept apart, especially because of race. That made Elvis's music powerful, fresh, and even controversial. In November 1956, Elvis made his movie debut in Love Me Tender. The film was a hit, and fans loved seeing him on the big screen. But in 1958, just as his fame was exploding, Elvis was drafted into the U.S. Army. Many wondered if his career would survive. Elvis spent 2 years in the Army, serving in Germany. There, he met a teenage girl named Priscilla Presley, who would later become his wife. When Elvis returned to America in 1960, fans welcomed him back with open arms. His music was still strong and his charm was still alive. During the 1960s, Elvis focused more on acting. He made fun movies like Jailhouse Rock, Blue Hawaii, and Viva Las Vegas. Critics didn't always love these films, but audiences sure did. The songs were catchy and Elvis's smile lit up the screen. Even when the movies were cheesy, fans couldn't look away. But over time, Elvis grew tired of the Hollywood routine. The scripts were dull and the magic was fading. He wanted to sing again, to feel the thrill of the stage. In 1968, Elvis made a powerful return with a special TV performance simply called Elvis. Dressed in black leather, he looked and sounded better than ever. He sang with fire like the old days. He started performing in Las Vegas and going on tour again. Crowds filled stadiums. His concerts sold out fast. In 1973, he made history with Aloha from Hawaii. the first concert ever broadcast live around the world by a solo artist. Over 1 billion people watched. But behind the bright lights and loud applause, Elvis was struggling. He was tired, overworked, and often lonely. Years of unhealthy eating and using prescription pills were wearing him down. His body couldn't keep up with the demands of fame. On August 16, 1977, Elvis Presley died at his Graceland home. He was only 42 years old. The world was shocked. Fans wept. Some couldn't believe he was really gone. Even today, many still wish it were just a bad dream. But though the man was gone, the myth had only just begun. Elvis's music never faded. His voice, smooth, powerful, and full of feeling, still fills radios and hearts. He sold around 500 million records, making him one of the best-selling artists in history. He won 3 Grammy Awards, and at just 36 years old, he was honored with the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. Elvis didn't just sing one kind of music. He sang it all: rock, gospel, country, blues, pop. He had hits in every style, showing the world how rich and beautiful music could be when mixed with heart and soul. After his death, Elvis was remembered in many powerful ways. He was added to several music halls of fame. He still holds records for the most gold and platinum albums in the US, the most albums on the Billboard 200, and more #1 hits in the UK than any other solo artist. In 2018, over 40 years after his death, Elvis was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest honor a civilian can receive in the United States. Even today, people visit Graceland, his home in Memphis, to feel closer to him. They bring flowers, sing his songs, and remember the man who brought so much joy to the world. Children, parents, and grandparents all know his name. Elvis didn't just belong to one generation, he belonged to everyone. But behind the glitter, behind the voice and the legend, was a deeply human man. And there was one person who stood beside him for much of his journey. Someone who saw the quiet, tender side the world never did. So who is this and how did they meet? Meeting Elvis.
You know, first of all, it was just an innocent meeting. And of course, you know, I was excited and I was reluctant because I didn't think they'd ever let me go. But it was just a one-time opportunity. That's all they thought it would be.
The first time Priscilla Presley heard the name Elvis Presley, she was just 11 years old. It was 1956, and his voice filled her house when his very first record played. The sound of his music made her feel something special, something she couldn't explain at the time. She had no idea that one day she would not just meet him, but fall in love with him. 3 years later, in 1959, her life changed forever. Priscilla was now a 9th grader living with her family in West Germany because her stepfather was in the US Air Force. She often felt out of place in this foreign country until one night when she met someone who would make her feel like the center of the world. At the Eagles Club, a place where Americans gathered, she met Curry Grant, a friend of Elvis's who worked for the Air Force too. Curry was struck by Priscilla's beauty and poise and asked if she'd like to meet Elvis. She couldn't believe it. She thought it was a joke. But soon enough, she found herself being driven to a house, not just any house, but Elvis Presley's home in Bad Nauheim. When she walked in, her heart pounded. And then, there he was, Elvis, in person. "I spotted Elvis immediately," Priscilla said later. "He was even more handsome than he looked in the movies. Younger, softer, more vulnerable. His GI haircut made him look like a boy and a man all at once." Elvis noticed her right away too. Even though she was only 14 and he was 24, there was something about her that caught his attention. That night, he sang 2 songs for her and his guests, "Rags to Riches" and "Are You Lonesome Tonight?" But his eyes kept drifting to her. She could hardly believe it. Elvis Presley was trying to impress her. From that first night, a connection was formed. Priscilla visited Elvis a few more times. On the 3rd visit, they shared their first kiss. As their bond grew stronger, Priscilla's parents became concerned. Who wouldn't be, knowing their teenage daughter was spending time with the most famous man in the world? So they asked to meet him. On their 4th meeting, Elvis put on his best Army uniform and drove his BMW to her house. Priscilla's father was cautious and protective. He didn't take Elvis's interest in his young daughter lightly. He asked Elvis directly what his intentions were. Elvis, calm and respectful, gave a sincere answer. He told him that he was very fond of Priscilla and truly enjoyed spending time with her. Life could feel lonely, he admitted, especially being so far from home, and her presence brought him comfort. He even gave his word that he would take good care of her. That simple honesty seemed to ease the tension. Priscilla was allowed to keep seeing Elvis. Despite the wide gap between their worlds, their time together was soft, careful, and filled with quiet moments. After dinner, Elvis would call her on the phone, gently letting her know that someone would be by to pick her up soon. She would rush to get ready, doing her best to dress older than she was, hoping to meet his gaze with the grace of someone beyond her years. When they were together, it was mostly in groups. Elvis didn't like being alone, and many nights ended the same way. He'd glance at her, then at the stairs. She'd quietly walk up to his room, lie on his bed, and wait. They'd share long, passionate kisses, but nothing more. In March 1960, Elvis's time in Germany came to an end. He was going back to America. That last night, they lay together on his bed, holding each other. After he left, she couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. School was a blur, and reporters kept showing up at her door. But 3 weeks later, at 3 a.m., the phone rang. It was Elvis. He continued to call every few weeks, sometimes months apart. He told her about his movies and his life in America. Then, in the summer of 1962, he invited her to visit him in Los Angeles. It took many phone calls to her parents to convince them. He promised to send daily updates, and that Priscilla would write home every day. On the first night in the U.S., Elvis had her stay at a friend's house. He didn't want a run-in with his ex-girlfriend Anita Wood. But the next day, he took Priscilla to Las Vegas. They slept during the day, played at night. Casinos, shows, private dinners, it was all a whirlwind. To keep up, Elvis gave her amphetamines to stay awake and sleeping pills to rest. She returned to Germany for a short time, but by Christmas 1962, she was with Elvis again, this time in Memphis. Soon after, Elvis convinced her parents to let her finish high school in the U.S. under one condition: she had to live with his parents. Living with Vernon and Dee Presley wasn't easy. Priscilla felt out of place. Eventually, she started spending more time at Graceland with Elvis's grandmother. Slowly, she moved in without it being official. By 1966, after many ups and downs, Elvis proposed to her with a beautiful 3.5-carat diamond ring just before Christmas. On May 1, 1967, they got married in Las Vegas. Priscilla wore a gown she found at a department store. Elvis wore a brocade silk tuxedo and cowboy boots. The ceremony lasted just 8 minutes, but the celebration was grand. Their cake was 6 tiers high and cost $3,200. They danced to Love Me Tender and began their life as husband and wife in a beautiful estate in Palm Springs. Priscilla took to marriage quickly. They even had their own baby talk language, a secret world of words just for them. But marriage wasn't always easy. 7 months later, while Priscilla was pregnant with their daughter, Elvis asked for a trial separation. Looking back, Priscilla believed Elvis was scared of being a father, scared of how the public would react. He didn't want to stop being Elvis Presley, the superstar. On February 1, 1968, their daughter Lisa Marie was born. Elvis was there. He was already in love with her. That same year, she finally saw him perform live for the first time at his NBC Christmas special. But by 1972, things had changed. Priscilla had started a relationship with her karate teacher, Mike Stone. Elvis had also been unfaithful. In February 1972, she told Elvis she was leaving him. They separated on February 23rd and finalized their divorce on August 15th. Priscilla received a financial settlement, some of his cars, and shared custody of Lisa Marie. Even after they went their separate ways, the connection between Elvis and Priscilla never truly faded. One of Elvis's closest friends once put it perfectly: they were like two high school kids. They kept in touch, shared everything, and never stopped caring. Their love didn't follow the fairy tale ending, but it was real, filled with warmth, complexity, and unforgettable moments. From their very first meeting in Germany to the years spent raising their daughter, their story was something rare, deeply human, filled with tenderness and truth. And long before Elvis took his final breath, Priscilla had already spoken her heart. But what did she say? What Priscilla said before Elvis died: A few days before Elvis Presley passed away, the world didn't know it yet, but one of its brightest stars was about to go dark. Life was moving fast for Elvis, but behind the fame, the concerts, and the cameras, he was just a man trying to figure things out, trying to be okay. Priscilla Presley, the woman who had once been his wife and always remained a close part of his life, had a quiet phone call with him during those last days. They still talked often, especially about their daughter, Lisa Marie. That day, Priscilla reminded him gently, "Elvis, Lisa needs to come home. School's about to start." Elvis laughed a little and said he knew. He always missed Lisa when she was away, and he wanted to make sure she got back in time for school. He still cared deeply about being a father, even when things in his own life were messy. Then, as their talk went on, Priscilla asked softly, "Are you okay?" Elvis paused. Maybe he didn't want to worry her. Maybe he didn't want to look weak. "Yeah," he said, "I'm fine." He even said he was excited about his upcoming tour. But Priscilla could tell there was more to the story. She had seen him go through ups and downs. She had seen the pressure, the weight he carried, and the sadness that sometimes crept into his eyes when no one else was looking. Elvis loved to work. It gave him purpose. The stage was his escape, his power, his peace. But in these final days, that same stage felt heavier than ever. He had personal struggles. Hard decisions were waiting for him, about his health, his team, his life. He didn't talk much about it, but Priscilla knew something was off. She gently told him that maybe he needed to slow down, take better care of himself. But Elvis wasn't the kind of man who liked being told what to do. He'd nod, smile, and say, "Don't worry, I'm okay." Even if he wasn't. He had been dealing with inner battles. He wasn't sleeping well, he was tired. The kind of tiredness that sleep doesn't fix. But he still got ready for that tour. He still planned to go out and give his fans everything he had. Priscilla later said that she didn't divorce Elvis because she stopped loving him. She never stopped. "He was the love of my life," she said in a 2016 interview. But she had needed to find herself, to grow beyond the life inside Graceland. Still, even after the divorce, they stayed close. There was a quiet bond between them, unspoken, but real. When the news came on August 16, 1977, it shattered her. Priscilla didn't just lose her former husband. She lost the man who had shaped so much of her world, the father of her child, the person who had once held her hand through all the highs and lows. She wrote in her memoir that the pain was so deep she felt like she didn't want to live. The grief swallowed her whole. But even in her sadness, she remembered the good. She often spoke about how kind and generous Elvis had been. He gave so much, not just money or gifts, but his time, his attention, his heart. He helped people quietly without needing applause. That was who he really was behind the flashy suits and loud applause. A man who cared deeply, even if he didn't always know how to care for himself. In the end, Priscilla's last words to Elvis weren't dramatic. They weren't full of tears or goodbyes. They were gentle, everyday words about their daughter and school. Simple words. No one knew it would be the last time. And just like that, a king slipped away. Not on a stage, but in silence, in a quiet room with so many things left unsaid. What happened the day the king of rock and roll passed?
Instantly, I knew something was wrong. I didn't quite pinpoint it yet because Lisa was supposed to come home that day. He was going out on tour. And I raced back home, and I think I ran every red light there was.
The day the world stopped. It started like any other summer day in Memphis, Tennessee. The sun was out, the air was heavy with heat, and inside Graceland, the world's most famous rock and roll star, Elvis Presley, was trying to sleep. Elvis had always lived on his own time. He stayed up all night, played music, talked with friends, and often didn't go to bed until the morning. So when his girlfriend, Ginger Alden, woke up around 9:30 a.m. on August 16, 1977, and saw the bed beside her empty, she didn't think much of it. She figured Elvis had stayed up, maybe reading or playing music. He often wandered around the house at odd hours. Ginger got out of bed, fixed her hair and makeup, and even called her mother to chat. Everything felt normal, but things weren't normal. Not this time. A few hours later, Ginger walked into the bathroom. The sight she saw stopped her heart. Elvis was lying on the floor, face down, still in his gold pajamas. He hadn't made it to bed. His arms were stretched out, a book by his side, The Scientific Search for the Face of Jesus. He had taken it with him earlier that morning. At first, Ginger thought he had just fallen. Maybe he hit his head. Maybe he was unconscious. But deep inside, she knew something was very wrong. She screamed for help. Al Strada, one of Elvis's staff, came running. 9-year-old Lisa Marie, Elvis's daughter, was nearby and started asking questions. Ginger quickly guided her away, trying to protect her from the horror inside that bathroom. Vernon Presley, Elvis's father, who lived just next door, was called immediately. An ambulance was rushed to the scene. At first, even the emergency crew thought it might just be another Graceland incident. Perhaps a fan had fainted outside. But it wasn't a fan. It was Elvis Presley. They arrived at 2:33 p.m. and rushed him to Baptist Memorial Hospital, but it was too late. By 3:30 p.m., the doctors had done all they could. At just 42 years old, Elvis Aaron Presley was gone. Only a day before, Elvis had seemed full of life. He had woken up late in the afternoon on August 15th, played games with his daughter Lisa Marie and Ginger, and joked around. He was preparing to go back on tour with his next stop in Portland, Maine. He had even talked about marriage and made plans for the future. That evening at 10:30 p.m., he and Ginger had visited his dentist, Lester Hoffman. Elvis was dealing with some tooth pain, and it was not unusual for him to go to appointments late at night. Elvis had a whole team around him, doctors, nurses, staff available anytime he needed them. Sometimes, unfortunately, they gave him more than just care. They gave him medications, lots of them. When they returned to Graceland around 12:30 a.m. on August 16th, Elvis waved to fans at the gate. One of them snapped a photo, the last known picture of Elvis alive. He wore a black jacket, a light blue shirt, and even though it was nighttime, his trademark sunglasses. By 2:15 a.m., Elvis had called his doctor for more painkillers. His stepbrother Ricky went to pick them up and handed the pills to Elvis when he returned. Around 4 a.m., Elvis called his cousin Billy and Billy's wife Jo to come play racquetball. After playing a short game, they sat by the piano and Elvis played 2 gospel songs and the ballad Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain. That would be the last song he ever sang. At 5 a.m., Elvis and Ginger returned to the bedroom. He took more medication, what he believed would help him sleep. But the pills were strong, too strong. By 7 a.m., still unable to sleep, he took more. And by 8 a.m., even more. This time, he asked his Aunt Delta to call the nurse for extra sleeping pills. Elvis's body had grown used to high amounts of medication, but now, even his body was reaching its limit. At 9:30 a.m., he told Ginger he was going to the bathroom and took the book with him. She warned him, "Don't fall asleep in there." His last words were simple and soft. While all of this was happening at Graceland, Priscilla Presley, Elvis's former wife and Lisa Marie's mother, was going about her day. She was on her way to an appointment, planning to meet her sister later. Everything felt normal until her sister looked at her and said, "You have to go home." That one sentence hit Priscilla like a bolt of lightning. She didn't need an explanation. Her heart started pounding. Her hands began to shake. She knew something terrible had happened. She rushed to her car, speeding through traffic, barely able to see the road through her tears. When she reached her front door, the phone was already ringing. Her hands were trembling so badly she couldn't even fit the key into the lock. She finally picked it up. On the line was Joe Esposito, Elvis's longtime friend and road manager. There was a pause, a long silence. Then Joe said softly, "It's Elvis." Another pause. "He's gone." Priscilla dropped the phone. Her knees gave out. She couldn't breathe. All the air left her body. Elvis, the man she had loved since she was a teenager, the father of her child, her once husband and dear friend, was gone. Back at Graceland, 9-year-old Lisa Marie was outside riding a golf cart with a friend. She hadn't been told yet. She smiled, the wind blowing through her hair, unaware that her world had just shattered. Priscilla watched from a window and felt torn. Should she tell her? Should she stop her? But then she remembered her own childhood. Her father had once given her a golf cart. She remembered the feeling of freedom it gave her, like nothing bad could touch her. Maybe Lisa needed that moment of escape just for now. Later, Priscilla boarded Elvis's private jet to fly to Memphis. The plane had once been filled with laughter, love, and excitement. Now it was heavy with grief. When she reached Graceland, she witnessed something she would never forget: Vernon Presley's cry. It was not just the cry of a man. It was the deep, raw, aching scream of a father losing his son. It shook the room. It stayed with Priscilla for the rest of her life. In the days that followed, the world stood still. People from everywhere came to Graceland. Some brought flowers, others brought photos. Many just stood and cried. They had lost more than just a singer. They had lost someone they felt belonged to them, someone who had brought joy, hope, and meaning into their lives. In the weeks that followed, everything felt strange to Priscilla. The world kept moving, but she didn't. It was like walking through a dark maze. Nothing made sense. She would walk through her house and sometimes think, just for a second, that Elvis might walk in like he always did. She couldn't believe he was really gone. Elvis and Priscilla had been through so much: love, marriage, divorce, and shared parenthood. But even after everything, there was still a connection, a deep emotional bond that time and distance had never truly broken. Now that chapter of her life was over, but the love, the memories, and the pain would live on. After Elvis Presley's death, Priscilla Presley didn't fall apart. Instead, she stood strong for their daughter, Lisa Marie, and for the legacy of the man who changed music forever. When Elvis passed away in 1977, his estate was in financial trouble. Though he had made millions during his life, poor financial decisions and high taxes left very little behind. Graceland, Elvis's beloved Memphis mansion, was expensive to maintain, and their daughter was just 9 years old. As Lisa Marie's legal guardian, Priscilla was named executor of the estate. Though she had no experience in business, she refused to let Elvis's memory be lost. With determination and smart guidance, Priscilla made a bold move. In 1982, she opened Graceland to the public. Fans from around the world came to walk the halls where Elvis had lived, view his gold records and jumpsuits, and pay tribute at his grave. The result was astonishing. Graceland quickly became one of the most visited homes in America, second only to the White House, and turned the estate's financial troubles into lasting success. At the same time, Priscilla worked to create her own identity outside of being Elvis's ex-wife. She began acting, first co-hosting a show called Those Amazing Animals, then landing a major role on the hit soap opera Dallas in 1983. As Jenna Wade, she appeared in 143 episodes and gained respect from audiences and critics alike. Priscilla proved she was more than part of Elvis's story. She had her own talents, strength, and ambition. Through heartbreak, pressure, and public attention, Priscilla preserved Elvis's legacy and built a powerful life of her own. Her courage and vision helped keep the king's memory alive for generations to come. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.